Breaking news that'll make your blood boil. Seth Rollins just crossed a line that can never be uncrossed, and I'm about to expose exactly why what he did minutes ago might be the most cowardly, calculated, and downright disgusting attack we've seen in WWE this entire year. While Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed were settling their business like real competitors, Seth Rollins, the so-called visionary, the supposed revolutionary, waited like a snake in the grass to strike when neither man could defend themselves properly. And if you think this was just another backstage brawl, you need to stick around because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see Seth Rollins forever. The Intercontinental Champion, the man who claims he bleeds for this business, just proved he's nothing more than an opportunistic vulture who can't handle the fact that there's a new generation of absolute monsters ready to take everything from him. Bron Breakker, the most explosive second-generation superstar we've seen in decades, and Bronson Reed, a 290-pound tsunami of destruction. These men represent everything Seth Rollins fears, and he just showed his hand in the most pathetic way imaginable. Let me paint you the picture of what went down, and I want you to really think about this as I break it down. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed have been at each other's throats for weeks now. These two absolute titans have been tearing through everything in their path, and their confrontation tonight was reaching a boiling point. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. These are two men who don't need microphones, don't need elaborate storylines, they just need 5 feet of space and permission to destroy each other. And that's exactly what was about to happen. Backstage, away from the cameras, away from the referees, away from any kind of official supervision, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed were going at it. And I mean really going at it. We're talking about a fight that had crew members scattering, equipment getting knocked over, and security not even daring to get between these two behemoths. Bron Breakker was unleashing that unnatural strength that runs through his DNA. The Steiner bloodline produces a different breed of competitor, and tonight he was proving why the Breakker name strikes fear into anyone with common sense. Bronson Reed, on the other hand, was using every pound of his massive frame to fight back, throwing Bron into walls, using his crushing power to try and suffocate the fight out of the young lion. These two were laying waste to everything around them, and honestly, that's how you settle beef in this business. Not with Twitter fingers, not with carefully scripted promos. You handle it like men, face to face, fist to fist. But here's where it gets infuriating, and this is where Seth Rollins reveals his true colors as nothing more than a coward wearing a champion's belt. While both Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed were exhausted, battered, barely able to stand after giving each other everything they had, Seth Rollins emerged from the shadows like the snake that he is. He didn't come out when they were fresh. He didn't step in when either man could give him a fair fight. No. He waited until both warriors were at their absolute weakest. Seth Rollins came charging in with the Intercontinental Championship in hand, not around his waist like a champion, but weaponized like the desperate man he's become. He cracked Bronson Reed across the skull first, a sickening shot that echoed through the entire backstage area. Reed, already compromised from his war with Bron, crumpled like a redwood tree being felled. The massive Australian had nothing left to defend himself, and Seth Rollins knew it. He calculated it. He waited for it. But Seth wasn't done. Oh no, this calculated attack was about sending a message, and that message is clear as day. Seth Rollins is terrified of the new breed taking over WWE. Before Bron Breakker could even process what was happening, before the second-generation superstar could mount any kind of defense, Seth Rollins turned his attention to him. Multiple shots with that championship belt. Vicious stomps. The kind of assault that has nothing to do with competition and everything to do with fear. Seth Rollins stood over both men, championship held high, screaming into the chaos about how he's the measuring stick, how he's the standard bearer, how he's the workhorse of WWE. But let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. What kind of measuring stick needs to attack two men when they're already down? What kind of workhorse can't face fresh competition? What kind of champion needs to wait for the perfect moment of weakness to make a statement? I'll tell you what kind of scared champion. A champion who sees the writing on the wall. A champion who knows that his time is running out and that these young, hungry, absolutely brutal competitors are coming for everything he has. Seth Rollins has been Intercontinental Champion for a minute now, and he's been walking around acting like he's untouchable, like he's rebuilt the prestige of that title single-handedly. But prestige isn't built by attacking wounded opponents. Prestige isn't built by waiting for your competition to be at their weakest. Think about the history of that Intercontinental Championship. Think about the warriors who've held it. Razor Ramon never needed to jump anyone from behind. Shawn Michaels fought the best and beat them at their best. Chris Jericho made the title mean something by defeating anyone and everyone who stepped up. But Seth Rollins? He's out here acting like he needs to eliminate threats before they even get a fair shot at him. And let's talk about the disrespect this shows to both Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. These men have been absolute forces in WWE. Bron Breakker is box office gold every time he steps into any arena, into any ring. He brings an intensity and a raw athletic ability that most people can only dream of. The Steiner DNA doesn't just run through his veins, it explodes through every movement he makes. He's been destroying people twice his age with half his energy. He's been making veterans look like amateurs. He's been carrying himself like the future of this company because he is the future of this company. Bronson Reed has been on an absolute tier of destruction. This man has been putting people through announce tables, crushing them with tsunamis from the top rope, making it clear that size does matter when that size is backed up by agility and viciousness. Reed has been knocking on the door of main event status, and everyone knows it. He's been one of the most dangerous men on the entire roster, and the fact that Seth Rollins chose this moment to attack him shows exactly how threatened Seth feels. But here's what really gets under my skin about this entire situation. Seth Rollins has been preaching for months about being the locker room leader, about setting examples, about representing WWE with honor and integrity. He's been cutting these elaborate promos about the spirit of competition and the soul of professional wrestling. But the second he's faced with real threats to his championship, with real monsters who could rip the title away from him, all those pretty words disappear and he resorts to the tactics of a coward. This is the same Seth Rollins who betrayed the Shield by destroying his own brothers with a steel chair. This is the same Seth Rollins who has a history of opportunistic attacks and calculated betrayals. Some people never change, they just get better at hiding who they really are. And tonight, the mask slipped completely off. Seth Rollins revealed that underneath all the revolutionary talk, underneath all the architect persona, underneath all the claims about being WWE's backbone, there's just a scared man desperately clinging to relevance. The WWE Universe needs to understand what this means moving forward. This isn't going to end here. You don't attack two absolute savages like Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed and just walk away thinking everything's fine. These men are going to want blood. They're going to want revenge. And honestly, they deserve it. They deserve to get Seth Rollins in situations where he can't run, where he can't wait for the perfect moment, where he has to face them at full strength. Imagine the absolute chaos when Bron Breakker gets his hands on Seth Rollins in a fair fight. Imagine the carnage when Bronson Reed finally gets to unleash everything he's been building toward on the so-called visionary. These matches need to happen, and they need to happen with stipulations that prevent Seth from pulling any more cowardly tactics. Steel cage. No disqualification. Falls count anywhere. Put these men in situations where the real champion will be revealed. And can we talk about what this does to the Intercontinental Championship itself? That title has a legacy that spans decades. That championship has been held by absolute legends of this industry. And right now, it's being represented by a man who just proved he's not worthy of carrying that legacy. The Intercontinental Championship deserves a fighting champion, a champion who faces all challengers head-on, a champion who doesn't need to resort to ambush tactics to maintain dominance. What Seth Rollins did tonight wasn't strategic, it was desperate. It was the action of a man who knows his reign is living on borrowed time. It was the action of someone who sees the inevitable end coming and is trying to delay it by any means necessary. But you can't stop what's coming, Seth. You can't ambush your way out of facing the future. Bron Breakker represents the next generation taking over. Bronson Reed represents the monsters who refuse to be denied. And both men are now going to be hungrier than ever to tear the championship away from you. The WWE locker room has to be buzzing right now. Everyone backstage has to be talking about what just went down. Some are probably disgusted by Seth's tactics, while others are probably not surprised at all because they know who Seth Rollins really is underneath all the bravado. This is going to create ripples throughout the entire roster. This is going to affect storylines, affect alliances, affect how people view the Intercontinental Championship picture moving forward. And what about Adam Pearce? What about WWE management? Are they going to let this slide? Are they going to allow their Intercontinental Champion to attack competitors in unsanctioned brawls? There have to be consequences. There have to be ramifications. You can't have your champion acting like a vigilante thug and not expect management to step in and restore order to this chaos. But maybe that's exactly what Seth Rollins wants. Maybe he wants to be suspended. Maybe he wants to create controversy because he knows that as long as everyone's talking about his attacks, they're not talking about how he's been avoiding real challengers. Maybe this is all part of some master plan to duck the real competition by creating chaos that management has to sort through. Whatever Seth's motivations, whatever his endgame might be, one thing is crystal clear: he just made enemies of two of the most dangerous men in WWE. And these aren't the type of men who forget. These aren't the type of competitors who just move on to the next thing. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed are going to remember exactly what Seth Rollins did tonight, and they're going to make him pay for it. The question now becomes, when and where does this revenge happen? Does Bron Breakker challenge Seth Rollins to a match on Raw? Does Bronson Reed demand a championship opportunity? Do both men team up temporarily to destroy Seth Rollins before going back to their own rivalry? The possibilities are endless, and every single one of them ends with Seth Rollins getting exactly what he deserves. This is the kind of moment that defines careers. This is the kind of attack that gets remembered. Years from now, when people talk about Seth Rollins' Intercontinental Championship reign, they're going to remember this moment, the moment he proved he couldn't hang with the new generation without resorting to coward tactics. They're going to remember him standing over two fallen warriors, not because he beat them, but because he ambushed them. The WWE Universe deserves better. The Intercontinental Championship deserves better. And most importantly, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed deserve the opportunity to respond to this attack in the most violent way possible. Give them Seth Rollins in a triple threat match. Give them the chance to finally shut up the so-called visionary once and for all. Give them the platform to prove what we all already know, that Seth Rollins is living on borrowed time as champion. This attack just changed everything moving forward. The landscape of Monday Night Raw has shifted. The Intercontinental Championship picture is now more chaotic than ever. And Seth Rollins just put a target on his back that he's never going to be able to remove. What happens next is going to be must-see television, and I'll be here covering every single second of this developing story. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think Seth Rollins is a coward for this attack, or was this a strategic move by a smart champion? What should WWE do about this situation? Should there be consequences? Sound off and let me know what you think about this absolute chaos.